This podcast is brought to you by Stevie Wicks and by Wizard.ai.
Welcome to another episode of the AI Analysis Podcast. Today's show is very appropriate, with Independence Day recently being celebrated.
Right, perfect timing.
Exactly. We're taking a look at the part of Your Broadway World Podcast's most recent episode, The Trial of Hamilton the Musical.
Oh, this sounds fun. A trial.
It really was. We actually sat down and watched this video debate they did. It was, kind of chaotic, but honestly incredibly entertaining.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So the host basically put Hamilton itself on trial. It was brilliant.
How did they structure that?
They had one person, Jake, acting as the prosecutor, arguing against the musical, and another host, Haley, defending it, like full-on defense attorney.
Wow, they really committed.
Oh, totally. And right from the start, we knew we were in for something special because Jake, the prosecutor, he showed up in a full powdered wig and period costume.
No way. That's hilarious.
It was amazing. The commitment to the bit was just so funny. And it set this perfect, wonderfully unhinged tone for the whole trial.
I love that dedication.
So we're here to kind of walk you through the core arguments, the, surprising twists, and some of the really funny moments from that debate.
Sounds good. Helping us understand why Hamilton still gets people so fired up years later.
Exactly. Because it really does, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And, it really was a spectacle, what you described. A fantastic, creative way to frame a discussion around such a significant piece of modern theater.
Yeah.
Because Hamilton, it isn't just any musical, is it? It's a genuine phenomenon. It undeniably revolutionized Broadway, and it reshaped how a lot of people interact with American history, for better or worse, depending on who you ask.
Right. That's part of the debate, I guess.
Totally. I mean, from its sold-out shows everywhere, globally, to being referenced in political speeches, even academic papers, its cultural impact is just immense.
You really can't argue with that part.
You can't. And this debate, it sounds like it really highlighted that even with all that acclaim, there are these deep layers of both, passionate praise and really sharp criticism to unpack.
Oh, definitely. Jake did not hold back.
So it gives us this unique chance to explore what truly defines a show's legacy, right? And how we, as the audience, kind of come to judge its quality, its influence over time.
Absolutely. And Jake, playing the prosecutor, he came out swinging. His opening charge was bold. Straight up, he asserted that Hamilton is an overrated musical.
Wow, okay. Didn't mince words.
Not at all. He claimed it got all its huge hype, mostly from, sheer novelty and what he called an odd obsession with Lin-Manuel Miranda himself.
The novelty factor. That's a common critique.
It is. Now, to be fair, Jake did give Miranda credit for his talent. He acknowledged his, lyrical skill, his storytelling ability.
Okay, so not a total dismissal.
No, but he insisted that basically everything about the musical, Miranda's own performance as Hamilton, the writing, the music, even the stage direction, he said it's all severely overrated, disproportionately praised.
So not just, I don't like it, but it's not as good as everyone says it is.
Exactly. Overhyped was the word. He kept coming back to that.
That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? It's one thing to dislike something, quite another to argue its reception is inflated beyond its actual artistic merit.
Right.
So Jake's core idea seems to be that the public, maybe critics too, got kind of caught up in the excitement, the newness of it all, instead of maybe a more, let's say, dispassionate look at its quality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So that immediately sets a really high bar for the defense, for Haley. She has to prove Hamilton's success is rooted in actual excellence, not just, cool packaging.
And Jake didn't stop there in his opening. He immediately brought up historical accuracy.
Ah, yes, the other big one.
Right, threw in an accusation right away. He alleged Miranda used only a single source, mostly the Ron Chernow biography.
Okay.
And because of that, the musical includes questionable details that Jake called dubious when you look closer. He didn't get super specific right then, but he definitely laid the groundwork for later.
Setting the stage, you could feel the prosecutor energy, huh? Like no stone unturned.
Totally. You felt like, okay, this guy's going to pick everything apart.
And the defense, Haley, how did she counter that opening salvo?
She came back strong, immediately pivoted to Hamilton's innovation, arguing it literally changed Broadway.
How so, according to her?
By seamlessly blending hip-hop, R&B, and, traditional musical theater styles in a way that just hadn't really been done like that before. At least not successfully on that scale.
Right, the genre blending.
Yeah. She highlighted Miranda's lyrics, saying they're packed with historical detail, but delivered through rap and rhythm.
Making it feel fresh.
Exactly. Fresh, fast-paced, and engaging. Her words. She argued this wasn't just a gimmick, but a really smart, effective way to tell the story.
Allowing them to cover a lot of ground quickly.
Yeah. Decades of history, complex politics. She argued it kept the audience hooked, which is, let's face it, hard to do with dense historical stuff.
That's a fair point. It is a dense story.
She definitely made a compelling case for its revolutionary nature. And Ilea also hit hard on the cultural impact.
Beyond just the stage itself.
Yeah, arguing it's not just an artistic triumph, but a cultural beacon. She said, presenting historical figures with a diverse cast, using modern music. It shows America's story is still being written, still being reinterpreted.
So connecting it to ongoing conversations about history and identity.
Right, not just a static thing from the past. She framed it as something that's alive, contributing to how we talk about ourselves now.
Interesting. So her defense frames Hamilton as this, like, living document, art that engages with the present. She's basically saying its cultural significance, its ability to spark conversation and redefine history for today's audience that outweighs maybe some artistic or historical flaws.
Yeah, that seemed to be the angle.
Which introduces a really fascinating tension for us,
Yeah.
How do we weigh artistic execution against a work's wider societal relevance, its impact?
It's tough.
It really is. It's at the heart of so many debates about popular culture, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, so after those strong opening statements, the debate dove right into the nitty-gritty. The music, the lyrics.
The rap and rhyme debate, I bet.
You got it. And this is where it got really heated, or at least very specific. Jake immediately pushed back on Haley's claim about keeping audience attention.
How so?
He argued a lot of the rap numbers are just way too fast. Like, genuinely hard to understand what they're saying sometimes.
Okay, the speed issue.
Yeah. He basically said, especially on a first listen, he couldn't make out the words. Which kind of undermines the whole clear storytelling thing.
That's actually a pretty common criticism you hear, that the rapid-fire delivery, while impressive, maybe sacrifices clarity for speed.
Right.
Especially maybe for audiences who aren't, like, steeped in rap as a storytelling medium in theater already. The sheer word density can be a barrier.
Exactly. And then Jake went further. He started critiquing Miranda's originality.
Oh. How?
Well, he conceded Hamilton definitely mainstreamed rap and R&B on Broadway. But he argued rap was already there before Hamilton. He brought up shows like Holler If Ya Hear Me, the Tupac musical.
Right, that was a few years before.
And even earlier stuff like Bring Into Noise, Bring Into Funk from the 90s, which had hip-hop elements.
Okay, so challenging the first ever narrative.
Yeah. The implication was Miranda wasn't necessarily the first, maybe just the most accepted or popularized.
Interesting. Accepted why, according to Jake?
He chalked it up to that obsession with Miranda again, perceived favoritism. He even said something like, people just love everything Lin-Manuel Miranda does so much that they overlook any flaws. Kind of provocative.
Ooh, okay. Pushing buttons there.
Totally. Trying to get a reaction, you could tell.
Well, that certainly cuts to the heart of this whole debate about innovation versus popularization, doesn't it?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Is it being the first? Or is it successfully bringing something to a huge audience, making it commercially viable?
Good question.
Jake's argument implies that maybe external factors like, the creator's celebrity status play a bigger role than we think. It raises that question for all of us. How do we tell the difference between truly groundbreaking art and just like really well-marketed art that makes existing forms palatable for the mainstream?
Tricky.
It really is. No easy answers, especially when the creator becomes a huge cultural figure like Miranda did.
Right. And Jake wasn't finished with the music. He accused Miranda of having a limited range in terms of melody.
Meaning?
Like, if his songs do have a distinct melody, they're not very diverse or memorable, musically speaking. He claimed Miranda reuses musical motifs across his work.
From other shows.
Yeah, like motifs from In the Heights or even Moana popping up in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Suggesting maybe a limited wellspring of original musical ideas.
Okay, reusing patterns.
And he even hinted at what he called thievery.
Whoa, strong word.
Yeah, the rhythmic flow. He called it thievery, but then he kind of softened it like, I don't think he did it on purpose, but it's just, he's good, but he ain't that good.
That accusation of borrowing, even if he says it's unintentional, raises big questions about influence versus appropriation, right?
Totally. Where's the line?
I mean, Artists build on what came before, especially in music. But yeah, homage, influence, copying, it can get blurry.
And the judge found that pretty funny, the way Jake framed it. But the point still landed. Is it truly original synthesis or just recycling?
Right. A significant question for artistic integrity.
Oh, absolutely. And then Jake clarified his point about the rhyming because Haley had apparently misunderstood him earlier.
What was the clarification?
He said it's not that Miranda doesn't rhyme, it's that he tries so hard to rhyme where the rhyme felt kind of clunky, breaking the flow just to make it rhyme.
Okay, I can see how that could happen.
And Jake put it perfectly. He said, Miranda wants so badly to be Eminem, but he's a nerd.
Huh.
Okay, that's a memorable line.
It was. And it immediately led to this hilarious sidetrack where the judge, Justin, jumped in asking, well, isn't Eminem also kind of a nerd?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. They debated Eminem dressing as Robin back in the day versus Miranda going to LaGuardia High School for the Arts. It was just a great, funny moment.
Breaking the tension.
Yeah.
But it does highlight how even cultural icons can have their nerdy sides, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So these criticisms, they really touch on what we even mean by originality, don't they?
Yeah, and public perception, too. When does popularizing something cross over into true innovation? Jake's argument about rap already being on Broadway but maybe not accepted until Miranda? It challenges that narrative of Hamilton as this totally unprecedented thing.
Right.
It suggests maybe celebrity or how accessible the creator seems plays a huge role. How do we separate the art from the hype or the artist's persona?
It's a tough nut to untangle. It really is.
Yeah.
Especially with something that became such a cultural touchstone.
Okay, so after digging into the music and lyrics, the trial turned to, well, maybe the most debated aspect for some people. Lin-Manuel Miranda's own performance as Hamilton.
Ah, yes. The creator playing the lead. Always tricky territory.
And Jake came in strong here. He claimed Miranda is actually the weakest performer in all facets, acting and musically among the main characters.
Wow. The weakest link in the title role.
Yeah. He clarified he wasn't saying Miranda was objectively bad, but that for the main character, the guy the whole show revolves around, he's the weakest one on that stage.
Yeah.
Vocally strained, sometimes maybe lacking the presence of others.
And what did Haley, the defense, say to that?
This was interesting. She actually said she doesn't disagree with that charge.
Really? She conceded that point?
Pretty much. She said Jake wasn't wrong, acknowledged Miranda is a rapper first, but agreed he wasn't the strongest performer, even in his rapping sometimes. Mentioned him struggling to project or maintain clarity in higher registers.
Wow. When both sides agree on something like that.
It lends it a lot of weight, right? Suggests it's not just an attack, but maybe a widely recognized thing about his performance.
It definitely makes you think.
Yeah, that was a big moment. But then, both hosts immediately started praising Renee Elise Goldsberry, who played Angelica Schuyler.
Oh, absolutely. She's phenomenal.
They both just gushed. So he did an exceptional, phenomenal job. Rapping, singing, everything.
Her performance in Satisfied alone, just incredible.
But totally. They called out her command, her vocal power, the emotional delivery, stellar, incredible, clearly a highlight for both Jake and Haley.
It really is a testament to her talent when the prosecutor and defense both agree someone was brilliant.
Right.
Goldsberry's ability to handle that complex rap and have that amazing singing voice. She really set a benchmark for the show.
Building on that, Jake then added another charge against Miranda. He said Miranda should get probation or even jail time.
Whoa, okay. Metaphorical jail time, I hope.
Yeah, metaphorical. For giving himself a soulful, powerful ballad like Dear Theodosia that Jake claimed he vocally can't sing.
Ouch.
And then compounding it by featuring that performance in a close-up in the pro shot, the film version. Jake called it too much ego.
So, suggesting Miranda put his own desire to sing that type of song over maybe what was best vocally for the role.
Yeah, that was the accusation. And then highlighting his own maybe strained performance in the official recording.
That ego charge is fascinating. It questions those blurred lines when a creator casts themselves. Is it the artist's right, or does it open them up to criticism about whether it truly served the piece or just, personal ambition?
It's a fine line.
And it touches on the vulnerability too, right? When the creator is the performer, it's hard to separate critique of the performance from critique of the person.
Definitely. Building on that performance critique, Jake then proposed something really radical.
What was that?
A production of Hamilton without Miranda in the lead role.
Okay, that's a thought experiment.
He even suggested swapping the actors playing Burr and Hamilton. Let the Burr actor play Hamilton, but maybe still narrate.
Interesting. Keep Burr as the narrator, even if he's playing Hamilton.
Yeah, because Jake went as far as to say the play should have been called Burr.
Whoa. Why?
Because Burr is the narrative through line. He pointed out Burr introduces all the main story chunks, right, from the opening number.
Alexander Hamilton, yeah.
To songs like Wait for It, The Room Where It Happened. He's the narrator in the foil. The play explores so much of Burr's life, his motivations, his struggles alongside Hamilton's.
That's true. He is central.
Jake found it kind of weird that the play focuses so much on Burr, seemingly just because he's the guy who eventually shoots Hamilton, as established right at the beginning.
So this reimagining highlights a real critical perspective on the narrative structure itself.
Yeah.
If Burr is the central voice, the emotional conduit, then naming it Hamilton and maybe casting him with a weaker performer, could that be seen as a structural flaw, or at least a missed opportunity?
That's the question Jake raised.
It forces you to think about who the audience's emotional anchor really is throughout the show.
So for you listening, how much do you think the lead actor's performance, especially if it's the writer-creator, impacts how you see a show? Is it fair game to critique a creator for casting themselves if maybe their strengths lie elsewhere, even if they wrote the part for themselves?
These are the kinds of questions that debate really brought up. Makes you think.
Okay, before we dive even deeper into the trial of Hamilton, we want to take just a moment to shine a spotlight on our fantastic sponsor for today's show. Okay, back to the trial. After all those specific critiques on the music, the performance, Haley, for the defense, brought out the big guns.
The accolades.
You guessed it. Hamilton's awards. She cited its 11 Tony Awards, a Grammy, a Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, that's a heavy list.
And its undeniable status as a sold-out global sensation. Performed for presidents, packed houses everywhere. Her argument was basically, let me introduce you to my 11 friends named Tony, plus some other fancy folks.
Can't argue with the hardware.
She contended that kind of widespread critical and commercial success couldn't just be dismissed as novelty.
That's a powerful defense.
Yeah.
Awards, box office success, they're often seen as objective proof of quality or impact, right? It's hard to argue against those tangible achievements, especially across different fields, performance, music, even literature with the Pulitzer. Seems like validation on multiple levels.
And Jake, the prosecutor, he is ready for it.
Oh, how did he counter the awards argument?
He immediately challenged their validity, asked, well, what other shows were in contention that year?
Questioning the competition.
Yeah. Not necessarily dismissing Hamilton completely, but implying maybe the field was weak, making the win less impressive in terms of absolute quality.
Context matters.
Then he drew a parallel to Oscar-winning movies that he personally thinks are hot garbage.
Okay.
Implying awards don't always equal genuine, lasting quality. They can be swayed by trends, politics within the awarding groups.
Right. Awards aren't always the final word on artistic merit.
This really hit his core novelty versus quality argument again. He said his biggest criticism is that Hamilton is getting by and it's getting its fame based on novelty, not on quality.
So the initial buzz was just too strong.
Yeah, the buzz of a hip-hop musical about Founding Fathers was so captivating, he argued, that it maybe overshadowed a deeper critical look.
That point is crucial because it suggests success might be influenced by things beyond just the art itself.
Right.
Awards can reflect the taste of a specific time, a great marketing campaign, a cultural moment, not necessarily timeless excellence. Jake's saying Hamilton's unique packaging the genre blend, the casting was so groundbreaking for Broadway that it became this self-fulfilling success story.
Right, that novelty way.
Exactly, rather than purely on, say, its compositional brilliance alone.
He then made a really pointed comparison to another historical musical, 1776.
The 1969 Tony winner, okay.
Jake argued that if Hamilton had used historically accurate casting, meaning white actors for the white Founding Fathers, it would have either been nobody cares like 1776, implying 1776 is largely forgotten by mainstream audiences, or people would have been outright offended by portraying American history traditionally.
Wow, that's a bold claim. Offended, why?
He mentioned something about American imperialism being portrayed straight without the reframing Hamilton's casting provided. He insisted 1776 is arguably a better musically speaking.
Better melodies, traditional structure.
Yeah. The judge even jumped in, asking if 1776 had rap. Jake confirmed no. Traditional musical, Sherman Edwards, Peter Stone, Tony winner, emphasizing its classic Broadway roots.
That comparison immediately brings up the role of the diverse casting, doesn't it? And its impact.
Huge.
Jake's basically saying the casting wasn't just artistic, it was a key driver of its appeal, especially for audiences wanting more inclusive stories.
Right, that it maybe wouldn't have been the same phenomenon without it.
It really highlights how the show engages with today's conversations about who gets to tell history and how presentation affects reception.
And Jake noted something interesting about that specific comparison, too. He claimed only conservatives compare Hamilton to 1776.
Oh, really? Implying a political motive behind the comparison itself.
Yeah, suggesting it's often made by people with a certain viewpoint, not purely based on artistic critique.
Interesting observation.
He then doubled down, insisting Hamilton's success is all due in part to two factors. One being, again, this strange elevation and obsession with Lin-Manuel Miranda and the fact that the show is a gimmick.
A gimmick. Wow.
Yeah. He argued the innovative structure, the casting, while they seem revolutionary, they ultimately function as a clever marketing gimmick, something that sets it apart but doesn't necessarily make it better artistically. He even urged Miranda to own the gimmick.
Own it how?
Like, acknowledge that his brilliance lies in this innovative packaging, maybe, rather than just in traditional musical writing.
The idea that a show's success is mostly due to a gimmick or political timing, that's a powerful critique.
It is.
It asks if something can be both brilliant and a product of perfect timing. Hamilton's diverse casting, the modern music, made it super relevant. But critics like Jake suggest those elements might overshadow deeper assessment of the score, the book.
Right.
It makes you think about how things like Obama's early support, that political endorsement, amplified its reach, especially maybe among certain groups, creating a phenomenon beyond just artistic excellence.
So how did Haley push back on this gimmick idea? She emphasized its profound cultural relevance, said it has become part of a national conversation performed at the White House, referenced in speeches by politicians from different sides.
Right, it's everywhere.
And crucially, sparked dialogue about who gets to tell America's story, how history is interpreted. She argued its themes, revolution, ambition, social change, are more relevant now more than ever.
So making it vital and timely regardless of how you label its musical style.
Exactly. That its resonance with today's audience proves its value beyond just being catchy or novel.
That highlights how a show's success can become intertwined with these bigger societal talks, right?
Yeah.
Hamilton's ability to become a touchstone for discussions on identity, representation, history, that's arguably a success metric beyond Tony's or box office, it suggests, maybe, that it tapped into a real cultural need for a fresh perspective.
Showing art's power not just to entertain, but to provoke and reshape understanding.
Exactly, even if you disagree with how it does it.
Now, we knew this was coming, but the debate really leaned into the more, let's say, politically charged aspects next.
Okay, the casting and historical points again.
Yep, specifically its colorblind casting and what Jake perceived as left-wing talking points. He argued strongly that Hamilton is not colorblind casting because all the bad guys are white.
Explain that.
He pointed specifically to King George, said he's just a caricature of rich white people, serves no narrative role other than being mocked, singing these funny but taunting pop songs.
Okay.
And Jake found this really ironic, claiming 99% of the audience were the rich white people being caricatured, suggesting a disconnect there.
That critique challenges the whole idea of colorblind casting, doesn't it? Suggesting it's not truly blind if there's a pattern in who gets cast as villains.
Right.
It asks if such choices are really about expanding opportunity or if they can accidentally become caricature, maybe simplifying things into an us versus them. It brings up the complex role of representation.
And Jake didn't stop there. He claimed the musical oozes fairly thought-out left-wing talking points without actually doing anything with them. Called it a virtue signaling play.
Ooh, strong words again. Examples.
He used the line, "History has its eyes on you," and then specifically critiqued the line, "And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to compel him to include women in the sequel," from the Seiler sisters.
Ah, the women in the sequel line.
Yeah. He pointed out that while it sounds progressive, women actually got voting rights much, much later. Over a century later. He argued it offers this feel-good sentiment without grappling with the actual historical timeline or struggle.
So, targeting the historical license again, arguing that feel-good lines presented as profound might be factually dubious or anachronistic.
Pretty much.
And the virtue-signaling critique suggests the show might prioritize making a progressive statement over maybe nuanced history or deeper narrative development. Taking credit for a struggle the play itself doesn't fully address in context.
He also hit the famous line, "Immigrants, we get the job done."
How so? It's such a popular line.
He argued it's historically inaccurate for the characters saying it, Hamilton and Lafayette. Pointed out Hamilton was technically a British subject moving between British colonies.
Right, Nevis to the American colonies, both British at the time.
And Lafayette remained a French citizen. Jake argued that while the sentiment resonates today, applying it literally to them in the 18th century is anachronistic and misleading.
That points to the tension between a modern message and historical fidelity, doesn't it?
Totally.
The line resonates powerfully now, reflecting a core American ideal. But Jake argues applying it literally in the play distorts their actual status then. Raises the question, how much anachronism is okay for theme, and when does it become misrepresentation, especially when the musical becomes people's main source of history?
But maybe his most stinging criticism on accuracy was the omission of Baron von Steuben.
Ah, the Prussian general who trained the troops at Valley Forge.
Exactly. Jake highlighted von Steuben was a genuine immigrant, Prussian, likely gay, and instrumentally trained the Continental Army. Standardized drills, hygiene, everything. Professionalized them. Jake found leaving him out completely ironic, given the play's themes and the immigrants line applied elsewhere less accurately.
That's a really strong point, omitting key figures, especially ones who embodied the themes you're trying to champion. Von Steuben's contributions, his personal story. It could have added even more complexity to those themes of immigration, maybe even LGBTQ+ narratives in that era.
Right. Jake even joked maybe he was cut because not many words rhyme with Baron von Steuben, but then got serious about the historical oversight.
It makes you ask, when does artistic license, simplifying history for the story, cross into misrepresentation or selective storytelling? Maybe serving an agenda, even unintentionally.
And one more big one on historical accuracy. Slavery.
Always a complex topic with the founders.
Jake took issue with the musical characterizing Hamilton as an ardent abolitionist. He pointed out that historically, Hamilton worked for his father-in-law's company involved in the slave trade after the war.
Okay, complicating the abolitionist image.
While Jake acknowledged Jefferson's own hypocrisy talking against slavery while owning slaves, he argued Miranda dug his own hole by emphasizing slavery when Hamilton maybe isn't the cleanest character to use for that.
Suggesting the musical oversimplified a really complex, uncomfortable truth about almost all the founders.
Yeah, that maybe nobody from that group is a great case study for pure abolitionism. And the musical didn't fully wrestle with that.
That's arguably the most sensitive critique. Musicals condense history, use license, but when they claim to educate or offer a modern lens, they invite scrutiny on accuracy, especially with slavery, racial injustice. How do you balance entertainment, story, and historical truth? Especially with something so painful and foundational.
It's a really delicate balance.
Yeah.
No easy answers. But the critique highlights that audiences, especially if they're learning history from it, expect some fidelity to those hard truths.
Definitely. A lot to unpack there.
Moving on from the big themes, the debate really drilled down into specific character portrayals and narrative choices that kind of bothered Jake.
Okay, like who?
Starting with King George III. Jake admitted he found him funny at first, especially Jonathan Groff's performance.
Groff is great in that role.
But then he felt it went too far, became lazy, just existing to mock white people, reducing him to a simple caricature.
Sacrificing substance for laughs.
That was the argument. And again, the irony given the audience demographic he perceived. He also hilariously mentioned the Jonathan Groff spit anecdote.
Oh yeah, the splash zone memes.
Exactly. Relating it to the live shows. A bit of levity there.
The caricature thing is interesting, though. While entertaining, if a character is just mockery, does it weaken the narrative? Oversimplify complex history?
Good question. Then there was Eliza's ending.
Ah, the final scene focus shift.
Jake questioned why the play, Hamilton, ends focusing on Eliza and her accomplishments, the orphanage, the monument, preserving his papers. He argued it does not make any narrative sense for the title character's show to end on someone else's legacy.
What was the defense's take, or the judge's?
The judge offered the snooty answer, as Kate called it. The theme is who lives, who dies, who tells your story, implying Eliza takes up the mantle.
Okay, the thematic justification.
But Jake found that clunky, like it was retroactively established. He suggested the show never really decides what it's trying to do. Thematically, is it Hamilton's story, or this broader thing about legacy?
That choice is significant. Recentering the legacy on the survivor. Does the narrative fully support that shift throughout, or does it feel tacked on? A valid question about coherence.
One moment that clearly bothered Jake was the casting of young Philip Hamilton.
Oh, the adult actor playing the kid?
Yeah. He called the scene where the 28-year-old actor playing adult Philip first appears as 9-year-old Philip genuinely cringeworthy. Said emphatically, "Get a kid!"
Haha, okay.
Argued the visual disconnect just broke immersion, felt super awkward in a scene meant to be sweet. And Haley actually conceded. She agreed it was bad, would have been cuter with a kid, said it felt weird.
Wow, another point of agreement. It shows how even small casting choices can really impact perception, right? If it takes you out of the moment.
Totally. Jake also noted the near total omission of John Adams.
Yeah, he's barely mentioned.
Since the throwaway line, and by King George. Despite being the second president, having this huge, complex relationship with Hamilton.
Well, omitting someone that central does raise questions about the narrative's focus, doesn't it? You can't include everyone, but Adams feels significant.
But the portrayal of George Washington was more mixed.
How so? Christopher Jackson is so acclaimed.
Both Jake and Haley agreed Jackson was phenomenal, commanding, a definite highlight. His gravitas, his voice, universally praised.
Absolutely.
However, Jake felt some of Washington's numbers made him too clownish.
Clownish? Washington.
Like rapping in an overly simplistic or exaggerated way sometimes. He also pointed out historical inaccuracies, like implying Washington was absent during key moments or simplifying his motives.
So even with a great performance, concerns about historical accuracy or tone?
Yeah. Does the amazing performance maybe mask or contribute to a simplified history?
Interesting tension there.
But then, one song they both seemed to agree was excellent. One Last Time.
Washington's Farewell. Yeah, that's a powerful one.
Jake called it the best song in the show. Noted its historical accuracy, using lines from the actual farewell address, reflecting Washington's real desire not to be president for life. Seen as a masterful blend of history and emotion.
It raises that big question again. When do creative choices, casting, narrative focus, character tone cross the line from interpretation to misrepresentation or just narrative awkwardness?
Yeah.
Audience expectations vary, right? Some artistic liberties are fine, expected even, but others feel like a betrayal or just confusing. It's that constant tension in historical fiction, especially one this huge.
Beyond specific characters, Jake also hit broader issues.
Yeah.
Pacing and thematic clunkiness.
Okay. What were the pacing issues?
He argued parts of the show were painfully slow, especially maybe in Act 2, not much happening, while other parts jump, sometimes skipping years with just a quick summary line. Felt disjointed.
Pacing is critical, especially for a 3-hour show covering decades. Inconsistent pacing can definitely lose an audience, feel tedious or rushed.
He specifically used The Room Where It Happened as an example of clunky pacing.
Really? That's such a popular song.
Yeah. But he argued nothing is actually happening involving Hamilton during that whole number. It's all Burr's perspective on the dinner deal. Jake felt it pulled focus too much, could have been cut for other content.
Like the von Steuben translation number.
Exactly. He suggested that while catchy, it slows Hamilton's personal story down without adding enough to his progression.
That's interesting. It asks if every song has to advance the protagonist's plot, or if exploring a rival's view is valid. But yeah, if it feels like it halts momentum, it's fair game for pacing critique.
The judge, Justin, offered a counterpoint on length, though. Said it's typical for Broadway shows that cost hundreds of dollars you want your money's worth.
The practical consideration. Longer feels more substantial for the ticket price.
True. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better artistically, but it's a factor in live theater. And throughout all this, Jake kept repeating his little mantra.
Let me guess. Can't spell crap without rap.
Haha, you got it. Crude, but memorable. His consistent jab.
Definitely leaves an impression.
Stop wasting your time on manually editing your videos. The secret AI tool will do the work for you. One of the best things about it is that it gives your video the potential to go viral. Visit this page, sign in, create a project by clicking on this button. Choose a video that you want to use, Click on the AI clip button. Wait for the magic. It is scanning through the video and looking for the parts that has the potential to go viral. Instead of editing the video by yourself, it does the work for you. It even generates headline and captions which fit your video. Another surprise is that they generate video description or social post for you to use. Once done, click Export to Post.
So after all the arguments, all the evidence presented, the judge, Justin, had to rule. He declared the decision tough. Said both sides made excellent points.
Acknowledging the complexity. It's not black and white.
Right. Hamilton's impact, its quality, it's multifaceted. A simple good or bad doesn't really capture it.
So how did he break it down?
He immediately acknowledged Haley's points about the cultural impact, the financial success, its status as this unique moment in history. Called those inarguable. Said nothing since has quite matched that footprint, that mainstream crossover.
Okay, recognizing the phenomenon aspect.
But he also conceded Jake made a lot of valid arguments as to its quality. Agreed with some critiques about the show itself, pacing, historical liberties.
So separating cultural significance from maybe artistic flaws, that's important.
Yeah. A show could be huge and impactful, but still have legitimate points of criticism, and vice versa.
Yeah.
The judge saw that nuance.
What was the turning point for him then?
This was key. Justin admitted that Jake, during his prosecution, conceded so many moments of enjoyment or quality.
Like praising Goldsberry.
Exactly. Praising Renee Elise Goldsberry, admitting he liked One Last Time, even enjoying the early humor of King George. Justin felt these concessions chipped away at the armor of hatred Jake came in with.
Ah, so even the staunchest critic couldn't deny some quality or enjoyment.
Right. It showed that even Jake had a more complex reaction than just pure dislike.
That's a powerful observation about critique, isn't it? Even with bias, genuine quality can break through. Speaks to art's power to connect beyond predispositions.
And then Justin revealed something personal that tipped the scales.
Oh, what was it?
Seeing a clip of Lin-Manuel Miranda just beaming, joyfully listening to Weird Al Yankovic's Hamilton Polka Medley.
The Weird Al factor.
Yeah. For Justin, that represented the inherent joy that musical can bring. Pure, simple happiness beyond critical analysis. And ultimately, the judge sides with Hamilton.
Believing its overall contribution outweighed the flaws.
Yeah. Believing the world is better off with Hamilton in it than without it. Its positive impact, cultural resonance, the joy that won out over the valid criticisms.
That Weird Al moment really captures it, doesn't it? How personal connection, shared joy can sometimes outweigh technical flaws. Art making people happy, inspiring celebration. That's a valid success metric, too.
It really is. It reminds you art serves many purposes.
So how did Jake take the verdict?
True to form. Immediately declared he'd see you at the appeal, mother famer.
Staying in character.
Totally. And he jokingly added Lin-Manuel Miranda to his personal actors that I hate list, right next to Robert Pattinson.
Oh no, poor Arpats, what did he do?
Haha. That immediately sparked this whole side conversation about Pattinson's career, Twilight, his more serious roles now, whether he's shed the sparkly vampire image.
Of course it did. A classic debate tangent.
So what does this all mean? The judge's decision, it highlights that even with sharp, valid critiques, a work's overall cultural impact, its ability to just bring joy. Sometimes that carries the day. It's not just about technical perfection, but connection, experience, becoming a touchstone.
That verdict, while subjective, really reinforces that idea. Art's value is more than a checklist. It's in sparking conversation, creating moments, bringing shared joy or catharsis. The debate showed how something can be flawed and profoundly impactful, admired and critiqued intensely at the same time.
Beyond the courtroom drama itself, the discussion spun off into some really fascinating tangents and takeaways.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, one big one was the influence of President Obama, how his early public enthusiasm really helped boost Hamilton's popularity, especially maybe among liberals.
Right. He hosted them at the White House early on, praised it a lot.
Exactly. That high-profile endorsement gave it huge credibility, introduced it to audiences maybe outside the usual Broadway sphere, turned it from a theater hit into a national thing.
It really underscores how cultural gatekeepers, especially someone like a president, can shape a work's trajectory. That stamp of approval matter.
Totally. Then there was Jake's hilarious analogy, Hamilton as the lobster of Broadway.
The lobster of Broadway. Explain.
Okay, so he explained how lobster used to be considered like peasant food. Cockroaches of the sea. fed to prisoners, servants, because it was cheap and plentiful.
Right, his reputation changed drastically.
Exactly. Only later, through marketing and changing tastes, did rich people get convinced they should like it, and it became a delicacy. So Jake Joke Hamilton is something that rich people were convinced that they should like, and if they don't like it, they're not ritzy enough.
Ha ha ha. Okay, that's a brilliant, if pointed, analogy.
Isn't it? Suggesting some of its appeal is maybe less about inherent quality, more about perceived social status, how cultural value can be constructed.
That's fantastic. It really prompts reflection on how much appreciation is organic versus influenced by trends or wanting to seem cultured, questions the authenticity of some admiration.
They also went on this super interesting sidetrack about historical accents.
Oh, what about them?
Apparently, English accents as we know them now, like distinct British sounds, didn't really develop until the Industrial Revolution.
Seriously. So the founders didn't sound British.
Probably not like we imagine. More likely closer to a standard American accent of today. They mentioned watching the show Timeless, where characters had American accents in colonial times, which felt wrong at first but was actually accurate.
Wow, that's fascinating. Mind blown.
Right. They also mentioned the transatlantic accent, that old-timey movie accent that was deliberately cultivated.
Yeah, Katharine Hepburn style.
Exactly. These tangents, they just show how art, like Hamilton, connects to everything: history, language, culture. It makes the whole discussion richer.
Absolutely. It shows knowledge isn't siloed. Examining one piece of art opens up so many other doors, makes learning feel connected.
And there were some fun pop culture connections, too. They talked about the Liberty Kids cartoon.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Historically pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And the funny fact that Baron von Steuben is voiced by Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
What? No way. That's amazing.
Right. And they brought up a pandemic joke in the Zoom where it happened.
Yeah.
Playfully adapting the song title, and just appreciating David Diggs' amazing sass as Jefferson.
Those references make it feel relatable, right? Shows how Hamilton seeped into everything. Less like a dry lecture, more like people just talking.
Totally. On a more personal note, Haley shared she was thrilled to get mentioned on the Tim Tracker YouTube channel, a Busy Parts channel she loves. Big fan moment for her.
Oh, that's cool.
So when we look back at this whole trial of Hamilton, what it really does is illuminate just how complex it is to evaluate these big cultural phenomena. It forced an acknowledgement of both its huge innovations and its perceived flaws: historical inaccuracies, narrative choices, performances. Shows art can be acclaimed, popular, and still fiercely debated.
Valid arguments on all sides. A work's impact really does transcend simple good-bad labels.
And this brings us to a crucial takeaway for you, listening right now. We'd encourage you to apply this same kind of critical eye to all entertainment you consume, not just Hamilton.
Yeah, think about where your own perceptions might be shaped by hype or initial excitement.
Ask yourself, is this truly innovative? Or is it popularizing existing things in a really compelling way? Where's the line for you on historical liberties versus misrepresentation?
It's about developing that nuanced appreciation. Recognizing even beloved things can have flaws, and criticized things can have brilliance. Finding your own perspective.
Perhaps the true revolution Hamilton sparked isn't just in the theater world, but maybe in how we engage with history and art itself.
How it forces us to question not just what happened,
but who gets to tell the story and why it matters to us right now.
That's a great thought to end on.
Thank you for tuning in to this pretty extensive exploration of Hamilton on trial. We hope you found this conversation as fascinating as we did.
And we invite you to continue exploring complex topics with us next time.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, you know, the voice of Goofy and other characters. You got to watch the part of Your Broadway World Podcast right here. It's going to be fun.